Avanti Centrae is a longtime Californian. She's worked in Silicon Valley tech, did a brief stint in journalism, and is now a writer and author living in Northern California. Her home is located in the picturesque Sierra Nevada foothills overlooking a river valley that was once home to a gold mine.
From my backyard, you can see off in the distance, some of the cliffs from where they used to blast the side of the mountain to get gold down. The river's about a mile back there, and there's these gold fields behind us that caught fire one night in October of 2017. But from my house, I'm in a semi-rural neighborhood. It's an old mining town, but it's very sparsely populated. So we're on an acre, and the neighbor next to us has 18 acres. The guy next to us has probably half an acre. So there's a lot of wildlife that we get. We caught a bear on camera one time walking through our backyard, and we hear fox and great horned owl, and it's an absolutely stunningly beautiful place, and I feel very fortunate to live in this gorgeous part of Northern California.
But over the last few years, this dreamy seclude has turned into a breeding ground for forest fires during the drier autumn months. The crisp leaves combined with worsening northerly winds and a small spark form a perfect recipe for fast-spreading infernos.
California is built to burn, and we've lived with fire for decades, but what's different right now is the climate's changing, the air's getting drier, we're getting more of these Diablo winds, the fire season is extending. When we have a fire without wind, our world-class firefighters are typically able to get on top of it amazingly fast. I'm sure that there are statistics out there about the number of fires that they keep to, under an acre or under 5 acres. But what happens when these winds come up? It's just nearly impossible to get a handle on them. So as somebody who lived through that fire that I was telling you about in October of 17, it's really scary when the winds are up and we hear about a fire.
In 2017 and 2018, nearly 19 million acres burned throughout California, according to the National Intra-Agency Fire Center. In November of last year, a devastating fire leveled the small town of Paradise, killing 85 people and causing more than $16 billion in damage. Today, the people of Paradise are still figuring out how to recover in the midst of an uncertain future for the fire-prone area. Centrae says the high loss of life and rapid destruction of an entire town was a real wake-up call for many Californians.
I had lived in Paradise, and that morning saw the plume of smoke and got the notifications on my phone that the town was on fire, and it just breaks my heart. And so I think that we're all taking it even more seriously. Those of us who've lived in the North State for a long time are aware of fire and prepare for it, but what we've done is taken that a step further with go bags and lists. We had 3 fires that we could see from our house this summer alone, and one of those caused us to start going through our list and putting stuff in the car. And so it's a problem, and I feel like the changing climate doesn't help it at all.
Fire season typically runs from September to November in California. However, with drier conditions and worse winds over the last 4 years, experts say the risk now extends well into December. Luckily, the 2019 fire season wasn't as bad as people predicted, but millions of Californians are already worried about what to expect in 2020. The new year means another season filled with the possibility of home evacuations, poor air quality, and mandatory electricity blackouts. Centrae says that when it comes to not having electricity for a few days, she'd rather be safe than sorry.
I think everybody has an opinion, right? It's inconvenient to lose power. Having lived through that fire in October of 17, which was probably caused by equipment, I'm glad that PG&E is turning off the power. I sleep better at night when it's really windy, when they do it. Is it a pain? Yes. Do we have to buy a lot of ice to keep our food safe? Is it cold? We're lucky enough that we have a wood stove. Do I feel for people that are completely more vulnerable in these power safety shutoffs? Absolutely. But would I rather lose my power for a few days or have my house burned down? I'd rather lose power. Yes, there's a lot of angst and irritation at PG&E. People really wish that it would be easy to put all those power lines underground, but there's 106,000 miles of distribution and transmission lines, and a lot of those go through forests. I heard recently that PG&E estimated the cost to do that, and it would be something like $18,000 for each customer of PG&E. So I've heard that they're committed to putting lines underground where they can, but it may not be practical. Some of these mountains are just nothing but granite. So it's going to be a challenge.
Centrae says that with no end in sight to the mounting danger of fires, her and her family have even talked about moving away from their home state.
I read the other day that in the last couple of years, more people are leaving California than coming in, which is a shame. I love this state. My heart is here. It's got rivers and mountains and lakes, and it's got a wonderful climate until the Diablo winds blow. So we have had those conversations, Climate Refugee 101, but we haven't decided if or when we might go or where. The whole world is facing some serious challenges right now, and we've thought about going up to the Pacific Northwest, but you've got rising sea level that could impact that area. So where do you go, right? You've got hurricanes that are getting worse and worse and worse. My mother lives down in Florida. Their hurricanes have gotten horrible. So it's a real challenge, even if you have the means, and so many people don't. But even if you had the ability to move somewhere, where do you go?
From worsening fires to rising sea levels, Centrae, along with millions of Americans, are facing the dilemma of how to adapt to these shifting climate patterns. Alejandro Frid is an ecologist, author, and science coordinator for the Central Coast Indigenous Resource Alliance. He currently lives in British Columbia, and through his work sees firsthand how shifting weather patterns are affecting our world.
I'm constantly faced with data telling me how challenging things are in terms of climate change, biodiversity loss, and it's really easy to, if you're not watching where your psyche is going, to fall into the story that humans are destructive and that we are in an inevitable path towards, a bleak future.
Frid says that while it's easy to focus on the dangers looming ahead of us, it's vital that people turn their fear into action.
There's certainly, an inherent doom and gloom to some people, or at least, parts of the psyche of some people. But there's also so much hope out there right now. Now, what's really key is to turn that sentiment into actual policy, into actual legislation that stops the destructive practices that have had a free ride for a long time, and prioritize our relationship with each other and Earth in much more constructive ways rather than supporting markets that take us in the wrong direction.
Frid is a father himself and wants a better future for his daughter. He says that while some environmental patterns are already in motion, he hopes that our actions today can keep things from going too far down the line.
I am a father first, and I'm also a scientist. So as a scientist, I'm very aware that a lot of the changes that we have are irrevocable. I mean, even if we start behaving in the best possible way, there's so much inertia in the climate system that warming is going to continue and so forth. But really, within that warming and other changes, there's a range. There's a range in which things remain manageable. What I do not want is for us to stay on the path that we're on, in which people at higher levels of government are taking baby steps, which is certainly going to take us out of the range that will allow ecosystems and societies to remain resilient.
With government systems doing little to solve the problem, Frid believes that the public needs to come together and demand action from their leaders before it's too late.
What I see is very incremental baby steps, where decades past that being what we need. We need real change, and none of the governments that I'm aware of, including the Canadian government, are near taking the necessary steps.
Frid says that for now what's giving him hope is how people like Centrae are reacting to the problems that are appearing in their local communities and taking small steps toward a more sustainable lifestyle.
I think for the vast majority of Californians, there's no question at all that climate change is having a huge problem. And I think that there's things that each of us can do, right? So we can eat less beef. We can put solar on our roof. We can plant trees. So these are all things that each and every one of us can do to feel like we're making a difference.
It's these small, everyday steps, coupled with global environmental policy reform, that will improve our planet for generations to come. To get more information on this topic and both of our guests, Avanti Centrae and Alejandro Frid, visit viewpointsradio.org. For more behind the scenes, follow us on Instagram and Twitter @ViewpointsRadio. And subscribe and listen to our show anytime wherever you listen to podcasts. This segment is written and produced by Amira Zaveri. I'm Gary Price.
Holiday celebrations are often joyous occasions, but they can be challenging for the millions of people living with Alzheimer's disease and those who care for them. The hustle and bustle of the holidays can be stressful for those with Alzheimer's, and changes in the daily routine, large gatherings, and noisy environments can create extra anxiety. Monica Marino, Senior Director of Care and Support at the Alzheimer's Association, has some tips to make the holidays enjoyable.
First, plan ahead. Prepare the host for special needs, such as a quiet room for the person to rest. If you're hosting, let guests know what to expect before they arrive. Since crosstalk and multiple conversations can be challenging for people living with Alzheimer's, try engaging the person one-on-one or in smaller groups, and keep them involved in the celebrations.
Marino also suggests experimenting with new traditions. For example, if evening confusion and agitation are a problem, turn your holiday dinner into a holiday lunch or brunch. Find out more tips at alz.org.
Your holiday grocery basket is waiting to be filled, and Aldi is a simpler, faster, and more cost-effective place to shop for groceries this holiday season. According to a new study by Kantar, more than 3/4 of household primary grocery shoppers agree Aldi is simpler to shop compared to other grocery stores. A time test with more than 700 shoppers confirms it. Aldi is at least 20% faster to shop. What's more, 9 out of 10 respondents who shopped at Aldi agree Aldi is more cost-effective than other grocery stores. It's all because every inch of an Aldi store is intentionally designed to provide a more streamlined experience, offering shoppers exactly what they need. And especially during the holidays, that's where fun comes in. Every week, Aldi puts out nearly 100 unique Aldi finds, ranging from luxury jarred candles and cast iron cookware to a range of advent calendars and holiday pet sweaters. During the holidays, shoppers are pressed for time and money, and Aldi has pioneered a model that gives people more of both.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Viewpoints is a production of MediaTrax Communications. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows. And find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.
Coming up on Viewpoints.
I think it really just showed people like you can totally be unique and have a really great time and not be judged.
We dive into Food Network's TV series Holiday Baking Championships. Then,
retail items such as frozen chew toys are things that we see a lot of movement on right now.
Christmas is just a few days away. Have you finished all of your shopping? I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.